for all of our documentation, we prepare a flow chart which describes the process, and we prepare something called a risk and control matrix. And a risk and control matrix, it's really simple. It's just a spreadsheet. It could be done in software, but it's easier to think of as a spreadsheet. So you've got your Excel spreadsheet, and I'm going to make it real simple. It's not that simple, but I'm going to make it simple. So you've got the risks, thanks Molly, and the controls. And for this risk here, you've got this control. And for this risk here, you've got this control. It's really that simple. There's a few other columns that we put in, but I don't want to make it more complicated right now than it needs to be. But that's basically the idea. Well, at the entity level, remember we have this wedding cake. At the entity level, we try and keep the format the same. So here's the entity level, and they're saying, okay, there's some objectives here or some implied risks if this stuff's not done. Like, for example, if management has not put out a statement of ethical values that is understood by all levels in the organization, there's a risk. Like, the risk is management is not communicating an ethical standard for the company. So that's your risk. And what control could we possibly have over that? Well, this is why this thing's wonderful. They list right here all the controls that you could have at the entity level. They say, well, we got an employee handbook. We have these quarterly meetings. At the sales meeting, they emphasize this. There's a code of conduct. They've got all of these possible controls. It's a menu of controls. So what you do is you take this, put it here, and you just take out the ones that you don't do and fine-tune the ones that you are doing for the way that you actually do it in your company. And then that entity level thing, that foundation, the wedding cake here, then that's done. That's what I was just showing you there. This is just the top of it. You know, this thing's much longer. There's your risk, there's your control. You don't even need a flow chart for this one. And you're done that piece. So I mentioned just a few minutes ago, for every process, and we could have 45, 70 processes, whatever, we're going to do a flow chart and a risk and control matrix. So there's the risk and control matrix, and now we'll talk about the flow chart. And remember I said we're going to do the flow chart in Visio. And this one was done in PowerPoint. You can see it doesn't look so good, but it's done kind of for a purpose. So let's say we wanted to describe a process for writing a journal entry. We use a type of flow chart called a swim lane flow chart. So you know in the Olympics how each swimmer is supposed to stay in their own lane? Well, that's what we've got. So the first person is the journal entry preparer. And think of this as their swim lane. The next person is the manager, and the next person is the accounting manager, not the manager of the preparer, but the accounting manager. And then this is some kind of other process. It's a management reporting process. So what we've got going here is we've got at least 3 individuals involved, and we can see the segregation of duties because we can see this person's doing this person's doing this. We can also see the information and communication. Remember that was one of the cubes for one of the elements of the COSO cube, information and communication. Well, here it is. Here's information that's being passed. Any vertical line is information being passed between people or to an IT system. So what we've done is the person preparing the journal entry gathers the data. They analyze it and prepare a journal entry. That goes to their manager who approves it. Here's a couple controls down here. That goes back to the person who prepared it. If there's anything wrong, they make an adjustment. They submit the journal entry, and then it gets posted by the accounting manager, who's also got some controls here. And then it goes into the IT system. There's some controls built into the IT system. And then it rolls into another process of making the financial statements. So that's a very simple swim lane flow chart. We really like this format. We've tried narratives, we've tried other types of flow charts, tilted up, not swim lanes, kind of the snake flow charts where you just go up and down. You might as well just list the things that people do. This is really good because it shows what people do. And if I were looking at this flow chart for kind of appearances, I'd say it looks kind of balanced. It looks like the controls are split up among different people. There's enough people involved in the process. The flow chart's flowing from the upper left to the lower right. It works. Okay, this is a real flow chart that we actually did on an engagement. We sanitized this. This is actually for a whole accounts payable cycle, not just a process. And we're able to get it all on one page because the company does not use purchase orders. So the requisitioning and purchasing we didn't have. But you can see it flows from the upper left to the lower right. The controls here are distributed evenly, although it looks like accounts payable performs an awful lot of controls. But we have, in general, more controls towards the end of the process than at the beginning. That's a good thing, because if you have controls over here, as I was saying earlier, you could have a lot of things go wrong later after the controls performed. So that's a good design. Also, you'll notice the controls have numbers. So you'll see EXP01, EXP09, EXP02. Those are referring to the written control that's over here on the risk and control matrix. Okay, this is the risk and control matrix. So here's EXP01 and 02. So what I told you, this is the easy way. This is the real way. And this spreadsheet was wrapped around here, put down here, because I couldn't fit it all the way over here. So I just cut it and put it down below. So, but it's basically the same thing. Here's the process name. Here's the risk. Here's the control. And then this is a control number. And here's a description of what the control is. Basically the same thing as over there. And these numbers will cross-reference to the flow chart. This is a best practice because if I want to know, if I want to change the control wording slightly, let's say I say check signers verify the invoice is valid, and then I want to add, and the only authorized check signers are the CFO and the CEO. I want to add that to there. Then I don't have to go out and change my flow chart. It's still got the numbers. I'm just saying, I'm just clarifying the wording a little bit. I don't have to go and change the flow chart. The flow chart's already got the flow with the number referenced on there, and they can refer to here to see it. You know, I've seen a lot of different formats where people take all this and then they paste that onto the bottom of the flow chart, and that doesn't seem to work. I think this is the best practice. So this is what I'm handing out looks kind of like this. Here's control EXP02, and we listed the control from the risk and control matrix. So here we've got the control, we filled in the control. How did we do the sampling? It's explained here. What is our test procedure? Is explained here. And maybe something that won't be so obvious there is these are the items that identify the sample. So if we pick 8 items, they might be 8 checks with a certain payee, with a certain amount, and a certain date. And then over here, these are the attributes that we're testing for. So what that means is, for each of these checks, we're looking that it's supported, it's got the right account number, it's been signed by the proper person, the packet's approved, and the check's signed by a certain person. So we're making sure that 4 things have happened for each of the checks we've selected.